Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
On a Monday night this week. Yay, long weekends. Thanks, Jesus.
I was going to say, you have Jesus to thank. So that's... Thanks, Jesus. Don't thank
Do
me. Thank the cross.
Do I also have the guys who crucified him to thank?
Yeah, well, thank Pontius Pilate. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, because that's the reason that we have Friday off. So, yeah, I mean, cool.
I mean, it's a double whammy. I mean, he died and then rose again.
But you can't have a resurrection if you don't have the death in the first place. So you're welcome.
So,
my people say you're welcome. The Romans for killing Jesus. Okay?
I mean, it's a fair point. Jesus gets all the credit. But yeah, you can't...
What about the guy that jabbed him in the ribs with a spear?
He can't have risen again if they hadn't persecuted and killed him.
Mate, you're welcome. You're welcome. No thanks necessary.
They're an important part of the process. So,
I mean, it's a three-act play. You know, the first act, he dies. The second act, everyone's confused.
It's like Anton Chekhov said,
rises again.
If you have a spear of destiny in the first act, it's got to get used by the third act. That's how it works.
So how is it used in the third act?
To stab Jesus. That's what the spear of destiny is.
But if they killed him in the first act...
Okay, well, I was adapting a very... No, it's good when you explain the joke.
No, is there part of the Bible? I don't know. There's like, did he come
There's
out
a common saying...
And he's like, by the power of Grayskull, with the spear of destiny, or something. I
swear, it's your mission to try and like deconstruct my jokes and make them as unfunny as possible. I swear, it's a deliberate sabotage attempt.
It's because then, I don't know, then me deconstructing it becomes the joke. And then I feel good about myself.
Well, I don't like this joke. That's a bad joke.
Okay.
This is a news and politics podcast.
I kind of want to see that part of the Bible, which was Jesus walking out of the tomb with the spear of destiny. That sounds like a really cool...
Puts on some cool sunglasses. The cave explodes behind him, but he's a cool guy and he doesn't turn back to look at it. Yeah, like fucking... I was thinking like Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin starts playing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's Thor Ragnarok, really. Yeah. Thor Ragnarok, but the Bible. Anyway.
I can't see any organizations that would have problematic viewing of that film, but I would watch it.
I think first things first, the Disney Corporation for the blatant plagiarism of Thor Ragnarok, probably. Yeah.
I'm sorry I said that.
The Catholic Church.
I'm sorry I said that it was an unfunny joke that you said, Tom. It felt a little bit mean-spirited. I felt you deflate slightly there.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you guys want to talk about it?
And 10 more minutes. So this is a news and politics podcast. Here's a transition. We're talking about the Victorian Liberal Party. So...
Speaking of jokes.
Seamless. We've been doing this since 2010 and we are goddamn professionals. 14 years. We know exactly what we're doing. We're a finely sharpened blade, a honed instrument, a well-oiled machine, if ever there was one.
Some
politics.
Sort of well thought through political attack ad, as it were.
Yeah. So tell us about the Victorian Liberal Party and all of their members that they can fit into a single canoe, Adam.
I mean, I'm sure they've got members, whether or not the members
of Parliament.
Actual... Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. No, they've got like 3. Well, this is Tom's story, actually. Tom's only found it. But it appears that the Victorian Liberal Party and Liberal Party in general have been fined $40,000 for basically... not posting their political disclaimer at the bottom of a bunch of newspaper ads that were run as part of the 2022 federal election in the Victorian seat of Corangamite.
Well, not
or at least they posted them,
yes.
Just not clearly enough.
Not prominently enough.
Yes, they did it's the old trick. It's the old little trick of like, oh, we have to put the little like authorized by the Commonwealth Government Canberra or whatever, like all that sort of crap, authorized by the Liberal Party, whatever. But we'll do it against like the bluest background, not even liberal blue. They did it a different blue. You have
teal
a
blue. Teal blue. Yeah.
Yeah, like use the teal blue and white text, and it just breaks your eyes trying to read it. Yeah, all emblazoned on things that it's the second example here that we have that I think is the most egregious. So I don't know, just as a bit of context. So, you know, they normally have to have authorized by the party name all down at the bottom. Newspaper ads, they usually, like in the picture sort of ones, they put them down the bottom. On TV ads, it's usually said at the end hilariously fast. But yeah, they failed to make it too reasonably prominent. And I thought one of the examples here that makes this even more egregious is in this ABC article, which we'll have linked in the show notes, is the second example, because it uses clips like a picture
from a news article
from the Geelong Advertiser, which they do mention up the top, and which has, like, you know, the big black thick font headline of like Coca's link to secret rich list, like whatever that means, but it's got several different words in there that would be like triggered for the certain audience.
He's rich, and I'm meant to think that's bad because reasons.
Also, Coke. Like Coca, like, I don't know. Oh, his name's Coca. See, I didn't even make that connection because I barely knew about the guy. I just assumed that had something to do with cocaine.
They missed the obvious cokehead pun that was sitting right there, but you know,
sitting right there. But then there's a whole bunch of bullet points of like, is against young people, wants to tear up whatever, blah 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 blah. And then underneath, in the same font as the headline from the Geelong Advertiser, they have things like, at every turn, Libby Coca acts against the community's well-being, whatever. And then teeny tiny text in the darkest little spot at the bottom. Tiny. Yeah, authorized by the blah, blah, blah. So it makes it look like that's what the newspaper
It's just like an editorial almost, or...
Yeah. But, like, that's what the newspaper says. And, you know, while I know
even though it does say advertisement right at the top, it does say advertisement, but it looks a lot more like native content to the newspaper as opposed to the first example here, where it's like there's Liberal Party logos all over it. They're telling you how to vote Liberal. Like, you understand it's a piece of political communication, right? Like, I don't think anyone's getting confused with that first example. But they have rules around this stuff, disclosure rules as to you need to disclose that it's political advertising. You need to have the name of the person who's authorized it, you know, clearly displayed. And, you know, having those things in tiny little font right at the bottom, or in the first example, washed out a white font against a teal background, making it completely unreadable. Like, it's just not good enough. You need to be obviously transparent. It's not good enough to just say, oh, there's an asterisk and then a footnote that no one's ever actually read down the bottom. Like, you know. And
I think it's excellent that they've actually kind of punished them for this in a little bit, because, like, it's the bare minimum they can fucking do to, like, make sure, yes, you have to, the authorization has to be legible, because, you know, this still doesn't go against the biggest, I think, issue with political advertising, in that they don't have to be true.
Yeah.
Like, that's step 2. They've done step 1 of enforcing the current rules. Step 2 should be maybe adding another one. And then step 3 is enforcing that too. Step 4 is profit. But
it's because both of the major parties are scared shitless by the idea that they would actually have to tell the truth. And that they might be called to account for things that they have said that are not the truth. Whoa, we're professional liars here. That would severely impinge on our ability to be able to do our jobs if we weren't able to lie freely to the electorate. Imagine being the guy that puts his hand up in favor of lying. No. We are renowned bullshit artists. This is really puts a chokehold on the bullshit industry. As a foremost representative of big bullshit, I find objection to that.
The thing I find interesting about this is that it was 2022 election. Corangamite, it's a seat sort of around Geelong, that area in Victoria. Somewhat marginal seat. I mean, not as marginal as some other seats, but classed as marginal. And then the Liberals obviously were trying to, I guess, make ground on Labor. So Libby Coca was the Labor candidate, and then obviously these ads are attacking her. Is against young people using their money in their super to get a foothold in the housing market. Wanted to tear up contracts to stop a local swimming pool being built. Yada 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 yada.
Yeah, so they're attacking her from the left. You know, knowing that there are people out there who are, you know, to the left of Labor, who might be swayed by these arguments. But then the calculus that people would then not vote Labor and then vote Liberal instead as a result, it's just like, that's not even good strategy.
Yeah.
Like attacking it from the left is good
Seriously.
strategy if you're the Greens trying to compete for that seat. But if you're the Liberal, it's just like, well, what makes you think attacking it from the left is going to make people vote for the far right party? Like, it just doesn't quite make sense to me.
They took three full page ads out in the Geelong Advertiser, and then in one of the ads they used, I think, a headline from the Geelong Advertiser
that'd be
as
the
part
one I
of the
mentioned
advertiser,
before, yeah.
which is like a weird sort of like ad within an ad kind of anyway. But
A little
like,
Russian nesting doll of bullshit ads. Can you believe this guy called Libby Coker an absolute POS? And it's like, well, that was you earlier. You told us you paid the paper money to say that, and then have quoted the paper to capitalize on their trustworthiness as a journalistic institution, to then turn around and make it as though that was their point, that you're just like letting everyone know about it, the goodness of your heart. But yeah, it's very dodgy, kind of like political maneuvering sort of shit.
The end result was that Labor went on to win the Corangamite seat, and Ms. Coker extended the party's 1.1% margin over the Liberals up, and then moved it up to 7.6%.
Thumped. Absolutely thumped them.
An 8.3% swing. So the ads were just, I mean,
imagine
they're
being a political
just-
party that's so
pissed them off.
useless that you turn a marginal seat into a less marginal seat after all of this wheeling and dealing. Yeah, it's just like, if you just stayed at home and did nothing, it might have turned out better for you, and you'd have 40 grand more in your pocket to show for it as well.
Yeah.
And now we should also mention that the person that was actually fined was the state director, Sam
I think
McQuestion.
the now former state
Former
director.
state-
I think
former
state
state
director
director.
at the time, but not the current.
Yeah. Of the Liberal Party.
Why'd he quit?
But the fine.
They were doing so good.
The fine is being paid by the party in this case.
Yeah.
Now it's only $40,000. You know, one could argue, should that not be more? Probably for these kind of things.
The commission was calling for up to $150,000 to be the punishment, but the judge ruled 40,000. So it's kind of like they were gunning for a bigger punishment. So it's the judge that's decided that that's plenty.
The thing that bothers
They
me,
technically complied with the rules. It's just that they've done it poorly.
complying with the rules poorly, Liberal Party 2022.
Complying with the rules poorly is not complying with the rules.
So the thing that bothers me about this, though, is that it's taken nearly 2 full years for Victorians to get redress. And in a situation where like mis and disinformation is being propagated at light speed via social media and other channels, to have situations where it takes 2 years to get the appropriate verdict seems like woefully inadequate in terms of getting a timely response for the voters to be like, I could understand, an injunction or something but it's like the net effect is they've done this.
Yep.
They've essentially
won.
They might have won
power this time.
exactly on the force of that, and they got ostensibly gotten away with it, and then paid a pretty minuscule fine of 40 grand at the end of the day to sort of apologize for it. But it's like if what they did had misled voters in any way, and they'd won the seat on the strength of that, like that presents a much bigger problem to democracy, I think, than that fine really suggests. And the timeliness of that verdict again doesn't really underline the seriousness of the offense. So it's like there needs to be some sort of injunction or something that they can do on the day to prevent voters from imbibing this sort of information that's not, correct in the first place. Because otherwise you're essentially rewarding them for doing it. Like,
yeah, it is. It's a massive issue, and it's, again, we were talking about last week, and we'll talk about it a bit more this week as well. But the pace of things that move, that the legal system hasn't caught up with technology, with different methods of ways of doing things.
Like, it's all well and good that we got a verdict 2 years later. How many people are even going to hear about it? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure whether it's because it's been sitting in the courts for 2 years, or whether it's just that the Electoral Commission and have actually just brought the case recently.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure whether it's just a case of bureaucracy or a case of like, oh, we just didn't get round to filing charges until now. Yeah, not sure about that one. But anyway, interesting little tidbit from Geelong. So our next story this week is, well, I guess one about in terms of technology. We talked, was it last week, about data or something? There's a discussion we had, and I've already forgotten where we had it and how we had it.
Cars and data, and the
enshittification
of businesses.
Can I just say, I love the term enshittification. I think it's just like a perfect encapsulation of 21st century late stage capitalism economy. Like,
it's fantastic, but it's hard to get your mouth around.
It's hard to spell. You need Google for that one.
Yeah.
Is it trademarked? We should trademark it. Because I like that. Did we come up with it, or is that someone?
Absolutely not. Someone very smart came up with it.
You would have to be You'd have to be trading something.
Enshittification t-shirts, and they're just terrible. Yeah. They're just bad t-shirts, and we sell them for lots of money.
Yeah, we can't just trademark a word. We'd have to be. Yeah. Anyway,
it has to be an idea or something. Yeah.
Enshittification mugs, and they come without the handle or something like that.
Yeah. And then it's latte cups. Latte glasses.
Okay, latte cups with a hole in it then.
All right, perfect.
And a handle, because you didn't ask for one.
See? Enshittification, guys.
Yeah, there we go. It's a mug with a handle, but the handle's on the inside of the mug.
Yeah, yeah, reverse handle.
Not outside, but it's just actually in the bit.
What the fuck?
Guys, this is how product development meetings work. I'm not sure if you know. So yeah, another area that data, I guess, is being sort of swallowed up, in particular in Australia, is with the large supermarket chains that exist in our country. So both Coles and Woolworths have loyalty programs. They've come through various different versions of them. But the most recent ones are Flybuys for Coles and Woolworths Rewards for
Adam,
Woolies.
I believe the pronunciation is Floyboys.
Floyboys?
Got your Floyboys? Got your Floyboys card?
I don't know what accent that was, Adam, but I take offense to that.
My accent?
I don't know. It sounded like a little bit sort of muzza, or gonna get my cousins on you, sort of.
I'm the one doing the accent. I'm just trying to repeat it.
Yeah, okay.
It's Calf Day Night. Calf Day Night's the voice.
Floyboys. All right.
Yeah, some high maintenance, but you gotta be. Like, you just gotta. Oh, yeah.
So these programs, essentially consumer groups, have raised concerns about the amount of consumer data that's being collected by these supermarket chains, and Choice says it is worried that the data is allowing supermarkets to stifle competition. So essentially, to give you a bit of a rundown about the programs, this is just publicly available information that we're talking about here. So those programs essentially function on the ability to identify a customer with their purchases. So you go in with a load of groceries to your local supermarket, be it Coles or Woolworths. You present your loyalty card. You say, I'm George. I'm a very special boy. I deserve points or a discount. And that is essentially an exchange. You're trading that information for some sort of benefit, whether it's points or special discounts or whatever. And in exchange, because you've identified yourself with that purchase, what these companies are then able to do is run large-scale data analytics
they know what you buy,
programs over your purchases in order to then turn around and recommend you different kinds of offers for things that you would like. So, for example, you go, you always buy a particular type of dog food for your dog. I've said, hey, it's George, it's me again. I'm purchasing this basket of goods, and they say, go away, George. God, you're so annoying.
I'm a sad sack who doesn't like change. I'm still buying the same dog food.
And basically, what they can do is they go, oh, he's buying bloody My Dog, and he's gonna, anytime that there's a special on My Dog products, like, we'll make sure to let George know because he's been buying it constantly, right? So this is good insofar as it allows customers to get something for nothing, right? That's the idea that they have in their heads of like, I'm surrendering my data, yes, but I'm getting something for it. I'd be shopping here anyway. And so there's no downside really to me, getting a special offer on my dog food once every while or getting double points or whatever the scenario is. The issue comes in is when our market is so stratified like it is here in Australia, when there's really only two major grocery competitors. You've got Coles, Woolies, you've got Aldi sort of biting at the heels in a very distant third, some IGAs. Like it really is a very ossified landscape in terms of the grocery in Australia. What it means is, it can further feed into that kind of duopoly, right? If they know exactly what you're buying and they know how frequently you're buying and they can lock you into purchasing with them, it's called share of wallet, right? I want to make sure that whenever you buy groceries with us. It's not really about the profits, whether you buy this particular tea or this particular thing and we make a percentage profit on that. That's like great if we make additional profit. But what the supermarkets really want you to do is consolidate your spend with just them. They don't want you shopping at Woolies and Coles. They want you shopping at just Coles or just Woolies.
If you're invested in your Floy Boys, you like if you do your grocery shopping at Woolies, it doesn't give you those sweet triple Floy Boys points.
Yes,
unless you have one card of each, guys.
Well, you can, but
then you're splitting your rewards.
Exactly.
You're splitting your rewards.
The whole idea of the loyalty program.
You got to put all your points into DPS. You just got to put it all.
Because sometimes I go to Woolies and they haven't got any fucking lettuce, or not lettuce, that's a bad example, any broccolini, and then I have to go to fucking Coles to get my broccolini.
Oh, look at you, so bougie. I wouldn't have picked you for a broccolini eater. I thought you just...
Fucking great. I don't know what you're talking about. Broccolini.
Man, Adam Christopher Doreen, you're a man of unlimited surprise.
Good in a stir fry. What's so weird about the broccolini?
Nothing. I didn't peg you for a broccolini guy.
If you fry some broccolini with some capsicum, put it next to a steak, get some anyway, it's fun.
The last meal you described to me as having eaten was nicknamed cheesy bread, where you applied cheese to bread and put it in the oven. And that was the meal.
That sounds delicious.
But it sounds amazing.
That's basically almost a margarita pizza. Like it's two thirds of a margarita pizza. You got bread and cheese. There's a little bit of tomato paste on there, and you've got. It's not a meal. Pizza.
I didn't even know you were taking in complex carbohydrates, let alone green vegetables. So this is good.
I don't remember describing the meal that George just described to George, but it does sound like something I would do. So I'm going to accept it and go.
Do we have a mole in the group? Did
you read it back? Read the transcript back.
And somehow made it to George.
Where's the stenographer? I want to go back over the tapes.
You got to tell each of us a fucked meal that you've made and see which one gets back to George.
Yeah, and that's how you know who the mole is.
You know who the mole is.
So
I guess
it's not it's not bad necessarily because you're getting something for your purchases, right? Yes, you are surrendering your data, but it's an exchange and it's a fair exchange. I think most people understand they're giving up something when they give up their data. Where it gets problematic is essentially when they're trying to lock in share of wallet and they know either one of these supermarkets know that you're spending just money with them. And so there comes about a sort of perverse incentive where they start to go, well, we don't need to discount off, offers for George because George shops with us all the time anyway. It's actually wasted marketing spend for us to give George offers that are good or too good, right? I might be, I might be someone who's willing to come in for 20% off to get that item as opposed to 50% off. Maybe they've been offering 50% off store wide. And they go, actually, we don't need to offer for George. We can only offer 20% because we know that's enough for him to get him in. So it actually results in, like, if you're doing your data analytics properly and talking about consolidating your marketing spend, not wasting money, hyper-targeting all of your advertising to individuals or very small cohorts, it actually results in less good results for the consumer. Perversely, if that am I sort of making sense in how I've described that?
No, I get you because once they've locked you in, there's not much point to them. Yeah, not much point to them discounting the stuff down, or they'd be like maybe could manipulate it to discount it down just a little bit to maybe encourage you to impulse purchase more within.
And the other thing
shop,
that
but,
they're doing is they're locking in, they're doing members only pricing. So you can only get this special offer if you're a member of the program, and thus giving us your data every time you purchase. So people start to feel a little bit shoehorned. It's like, oh, wait, I have to save money on my shop because cost of living crisis. And the only way I can do that is by surrendering the data. So how much of a choice, quote unquote, am I actually getting in that? If I need to spend substantially more on my shop in order to not get those offers in order to protect my privacy, like, is that really a choice? So
and Mags will only eat that dog food. So that particular brand, that particular style. So
Maggie doesn't eat my dog. Okay. Maggie is a queen and she eats Royal Canin and it's $5 a tin. I have to buy it in bulk because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Case in
How
point.
much do you really love your fur baby?
The thing that I guess that the growers associations have called out, which is why we're speaking about this, is that the data held by these two companies gives them immense power over producers, particularly when it comes to like fresh produce as well, because they're able to dictate terms, basically, because they have the knowledge. They can turn around and say
it's called retail media. It's a whole arm of these large grocery chains business. Is like, we know how much, we have all this advanced data about George and his spending habits. If you want an offer, if you want George to try something, well, you got to give us a kickback and we'll make sure he gets it. We'll make sure the exact right people get your offers because we have all this data about our customers and how they shop and what they do. So it really it's one of those like Age of Surveillance Capitalism, that book, where it talks about data as the commodity. It's less about the shopping centers providing you groceries, and now it's more about them harvesting that data to then, you know, try and on-sell you on other things. Maybe, you know, they've got insurance or they've got phone plans or they've got, you know, travel and other services that they can then cross-sell into those existing loyal customers, right? Like it starts to look very, very duopoly-like when you look at it from that perspective.
It's, I mean, but what they're talking about here is that effectively when it comes to negotiating prices for the supply of, say, fruit and
that as well,
they are able to say, well, they're able to control effectively the supply and demand equilibrium in combination with agreements that are already in place. So these agreements that are put to that are, you know, drawn up between growers and these supermarket chains, they've been outlined in submissions to the Senate inquiry on supermarket prices. And basically what happens is each week, the growers and the supermarkets will negotiate on the prices of fruit and vegetables. Now, of course, if you have all the information, that gives you a massive bargaining chip to know what you can and can't.
It also gives you the supermarket,
buy, charge, etc.
It also gives you a massive leg up because you know you can sort of control the flow of these goods to a certain extent by organizing these kinds of really targeted promotions. So if you know you're going to buy 1,000 cases of broccolini, but you know that's more broccolini than you would normally move, and you can, you know, put together a special that moves more broccolini. It basically it creates a way to solve the supply and demand problem that a lot of these supermarkets have, of making sure they don't buy too much and then have too much to sell, or don't buy enough. And then people, you know, they run out of a particular item and people don't get the thing that they want to buy. It's a constant balancing act with large supermarkets as to like how much do they want to have the exact right amount of stuff purchased that they're then going to sell. Because anything more than that is waste, and anything less than that is a missed opportunity, right? So it essentially allows them to control that balancing act. Well, I can choose I'm going to sell more of this stuff because I'll do a bunch of hyper-targeted promotions. Or
and then I'll only pay the grower XYZ because I bought more of their stuff.
I bought it all in bulk, and then I can pay him less. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you know, Farmer Sally, who grows broccolini and enjoys and loves broccolini, was expecting to ship XYZ units at XYZ price because that's what the price was last week. But then Woolworths have gone, haha, surprise, trump card. We know XYZ that you don't know that, but this is, and then because they've got no other person they can sell to.
Well, it's Coles and Woolworths. That's it. Yeah.
There's no bargaining power there, right? You just have to, as a grower, you just go, please, sir, can I have some more? And you do that forever.
And this is a problem that we were aware of. Like during the drought, I remember there was this like, oh, you got to buy this special milk, and of this milk will give more money to the farmers. compared to the other milk. And it's just like, well, that's a trap. Like, why don't you just give them more of the money? Like, rather than trying to pressure the suppliers who give you the product that allow you to make a bunch of money, why not just not put them under all that pressure rather than creating a special subclass of milk, which is like, no, this is the milk where we don't stooge the dairy farmers.
Yeah,
and it's like, why don't you just do that with all your milk?
This is the milk that'll make you feel like you're making a difference.
Yeah.
Get this milk.
You're not, to be clear, but you will feel that way.
By that point, the advertisers have put certain promotional activities in place, which are all about the lowering the prices of certain goods or services, which I may or may not have.
And pulling levers.
Yeah, look, I won't
Mm.
mention any names
All right,
in
I
that
won't.
commercial that I was in.
I thought that's what we were dancing around. Can I release the memes now?
No, you can't release
Release
the
the
memes.
memes!
I have so many memes.
They were publicly released, but I don't want to go slag
The
people
ads
off.
were released.
If
The memes-
Tom releases memes as a private citizen, okay, there's nothing you can do about that, mate. Okay, those images are out in the wild of you with the big hand and the,
It wasn't a big hand; it was just a big lever. It
Okay.
was,
making the
and-
prices go in a certain
and
direction.
maniacal smile. Oh man. Oh.
I was directed. I had no choice. in the matter.
Oh boy, were you?
So,
But yes, this
this
destroys competition. Basically, is the point of that. All the start of the harvesting
it
off
can.
destroys competition
Mhm.
and further entrenches the duopoly in the Australian supermarket chain.
Yeah.
So
It's just it's not inherently a problem in and of itself for large retailers to have data about their clients. Like, all large retailers do this to some extent. Groceries a particular case because you are buying so many things in the one basket, so they learn a lot more about you. The purchases are frequent;
Yeah.
they're every week, right? And they know whether you're a vegetarian. They know what pets, have you got a dog? Have you got a cat? Have you got, are you a
Have you got
vegan?
a dog that you feed cat food for some reason?
No, but there's a lot that they can learn about you based on your purchase history, and then they can turn around to data brokers and presumably sell this information if they wanted to. I mean, it's their intellectual property. There's nothing inherently nefarious about it, but when it's coupled with what is an effective duopoly, I think it's evidence that it's further stratification of this already pretty ossified market. It's really hard to get a third-party competitor in there. Like, if there's lots of competition, if there were like 5 major chains, you've got Kroger's, you've got Whole Foods, you've got, Pack and Save, you've got, 10 different, regional chains like they have in America, Albertsons and, Giant Eagle and all this sort of thing. Then it's not as big of a deal because you have choice as the consumer. You go, well, if I can shop here and give away my data, or I can shop there and not, but customers in Australia really don't have that choice. You're sort of forced into a situation where it's like, well, I can choose Pepsi or Coke, and that's it. And really, whatever they say is how it goes. And that feels not great. So anyway, is this report and is the submission to the Senate going to do anything? Probably not. But it'd be good if it did.
Yeah.
I don't-
They should take a leaf out of who was it, the ACCC in the last story. It's like, not only should you proactively enforce the rules that you've already got, maybe chuck a couple of new ones in there. That'd be nice.
Australia is so stratified in a number of different sectors. In grocery, there's the big 2. With banks, there's the big 4. Really, there's only one hardware chain anymore, being Bunnings. Like, the Mitre 10 is not really an entity that's worth speaking of much anymore. Like, in terms
they're
of,
around, but they're not necessarily
Not like
scale
Bunnings.
or Bunnings. Yeah.
if you want to go to a hardware store, it's like some plinky independent, or it's Bunnings, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
And
So-
only one of them have the little adorable trolleys and little uniforms for kids.
well, where am I going to put? Yeah, where's my playroom at Bob's Toolshed, where I get a hammer for $37? Because they can't buy at scale like the big retailers. Yeah, it's just
price for a hammer.
I don't know. It seems like a lot.
bought a hammer in a long time.
It's just it's one of those things where it's like, we've got this problem in a bunch of different sectors in Australia, and I really don't know what anyone, like, it doesn't seem like the government's interested in breaking up monopolies. Like, Labor has not indicated any interest in that regard. So
Which is interesting, given they're meant the
meant to be on the side of Labor.
worker party.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine any of this is great for the employees.
Well,
The
no,
employees'
because it
rights.
reduces your collective bargaining power. If there's if
Yeah.
you can work for company A or B, it doesn't really give you a lot of
And if
negotiating.
A and B are doing the same thing,
Yeah,
then yeah.
yeah, it's a problem.
Mm.
Speaking of problems,
Yeah. I was gonna say that's the easy segue there. Speaking of problems, yeah, construction's fucked.
construction is fucked.
I don't know
is-
how
it is
else to
fucked.
summarize
Te-
that.
Tell us, Adam.
Oh dear God! I recently got out of construction because the industry's broken.
So the
it was
library's
just a-
open, baby.
Yeah.
Shots fired! Shots fired! 410 shots fired.
We've spoken about it before, but there's currently an issue in the construction sector where basically there is a housing shortage, so we need more houses. But in order to build said houses, the construction costs and inputs to make that happen are so high that it's kind of outside anyone's price range to be able to build. And
Well,
because everything's
it's too expensive to build affordable housing is the key.
Affordable housing.
It's not too expensive to build and sell premium housing. That works just fine on the margins. But the idea of buying and of creating and constructing and selling affordable housing is much more difficult in the current environment based on
Well, I
those
would
higher
say
input costs.
not even affordable housing. I would just say housing. Even middle-ranged houses now, I would say, are sort of outside the price range of what.
Well, it's
would
not a
have been the
problem if you're
same.
rich. That's my point. Is if you've got a bunch of money, then it's not a problem.
I would classify. People often say affordable or high-end housing, but there's generally a middle bracket, which is the slightly upspec sort of 3 or 4 bedroom home, which was probably the mainstay of a lot of the building industry. Probably, the volume building industry, that is, a couple of years ago. Now, not so much. So. Anyway, there's been an article here from the ABC where one of the companies in Queensland, so Hutchinson Building, lost 86% of its net profits last financial year. However, he says, this is the head of Hutchinson Building, Scott Hutchinson.
The chairman.
Chairman, sorry. It's one of the nation's largest builders, we should also preface this with. So they were offered $1 billion in housing construction jobs every month last financial year. So their revenue has gone up, basically, but their net profit has gone down by 86%. So the demand is there, but as a builder, they aren't able to meet their costs. So
it's so funny because
yeah.
all this excess demand in the system has put pressure. The way the market's supposed to work is, again, a market failure for all those free market, invisible hand job enthusiasts out there. This is a market failure where there's excess demand, all right? More people wanting houses than there are houses to be built. And that's causing a problem where essentially, because of there's all this excess demand, it's caused inflation in all these different categories in terms of labor, in terms of materials, in terms of whatever. Because people, the actual tradies or whatever have their choice of projects. There's all this demand. They can go here or they can go over there. They can charge, significantly more than what they've charged previously. And what happens is it's kind of like you remember that episode of The Simpsons, Tom, where it's like Monty Burns has all of those diseases and they're trying to cram their way through. They uses the analogy of them trying to cram their way through a doorway all at once. And it means none of the diseases get through. Yeah. That's the housing industry at the moment. It's like there's so much demand that it's all getting caught in the neck of this funnel. And it means as many additional houses as are needed aren't actually getting built. That's my understanding
George,
of it.
If I'm remembering that reference correctly, you're saying the housing market's indestructible?
No, I'm saying a stiff breeze could knock it over and wipe it out. That's what I'm saying.
Indestructible.
So there's been something like, I think, nearly 2,700, 3,000 firms that have gone out of business. And construction firms is a loose term. I think that includes potential suppliers within the network, but basically, several thousand have gone out of business this financial year, because of the issues with the sector. Now, we've talked before about fixed price contracts and issues with those, but the main issue it seems to be at the moment is that labor is just not there, and the stuff that is there is really expensive to get a tradie in, to get a sparky in, whatever. It's really expensive for these input costs, not to mention just your general sort of business as usual costs as a construction company with having to compete with wages and wage growth for people in the office as well. So there's another example here. The Consolidated Properties Group chairman, I believe that is Don O'Rourke, said that without government subsidies, his business could not produce a 2-bedroom apartment for less than $1 million. And that's, I guess, somewhere in Brisbane. But
wow,
I mean, that's a lot, right? For a 2-bedroom apartment. And these are big construction projects they'd be working on. So they're not small. Like the individual, you're not talking about, a block of 6, you're talking probably a block of 100 or something like that. But there is a certain issue. There's a sort of equilibrium with scale with the construction sector, is that, yes, you can make lots of money if you have a big construction project, but there's also a lot of extra costs that come in with the massive skyscrapers and those kind of things.
Yeah, there's the sweet spot
with it. There's a sweet spot. So it's why you see a lot of apartment buildings, particularly around more urban sort of suburban areas that will be sort of 20 to 30 units, something like that.
Yeah, and they'll be sort of like 3-4 stories
3-story,
high.
something like that. Yeah. Within the planning scheme, but easy to do. The council generally likes it because they can sort of double, triple, quadruple,
more sort of
whatever it is.
What would be called sort of medium density rather than
correct.
super high density.
Yeah, although some of them are sort of high density being passed off as medium density, but anyway.
Hello, it is I, medium density.
Medium density.
600 apartments. It's basically a skyscraper in Box Hill. What are you talking about? And I'm medium density. I've never heard of this high density. What are you talking about?
Like I would argue that medium density is generally sort of 3-bedroom dwellings that are stacked together on a single lot. So you might have, say, 4 or 5 on a lot. I would argue anything 22-bedroom and 1-bedroom apartments that's a high density development. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. But anyway, the point being is $1 million. 4 years ago, Mr. Don O'Rourke believes that was $450,000. And
so basically it's doubled over the course of 4 years, the cost to create these apartments.
Correct.
Which that's insane.
That's
nuts.
True,
that's insane.
And certainly from a residential point of view, which is like a volume builder point of view, which is where I've worked. You could see probably in the last sort of 12, just as we sort of came out of lockdowns, those last 12 months, every builder was sort of going, oh shit, we're not making any money because of these fixed price contracts, and everyone started jacking their prices up. So all of a sudden houses that, housing packages, because sometimes you buy them as land as well, out in Whoop Whoop, but the packages has jumped, 30 or 40%. And some of these contracts, they're fixed price contracts, they still have exclusions in them, which allow you to charge more at various points, particularly if land's delayed. But it's all a big perfect storm. So you've got not enough labor. It doesn't just affect, people building houses. It affects things like the land, the civil works for the land to be released. It affects things like the councils and their ability to process applications for permits. It affects things like, the availability for people to work on government projects. That's training out labor from the system. So if I'm a Sparky, why would I go work for pittance on a residential house when I could go work on a big road tunnel and get paid XYZ? It's not necessarily a straight swap, but it does contribute.
But if you've got the state government doing these massive infrastructure projects, like getting rid of all the level crossings, for example, which is still going on, and it's hiring tens of thousands of tradies, or like the M80 ring road or whatever that is, that North Link, right? Like that is going to take a significant supply of the state's trade labor away from building. Some of those people would otherwise be building small residential housing. So that is part of the equation as well. It's like, yes, you want the government doing these large infrastructure projects, but one of the side effects of that is that you might be causing a lot of wage inflation in labor and trade, which is not necessarily a bad thing, provided that there's still capacity to do all of the different things all at once, right?
And one of the reasons for this is my old CEO sort of saw this coming. There were, say what you want about that CEO, but one of the things he did used to talk about was that there will be a immigration gap because of COVID of about 2 or 3 years, and that will mean that there will be net upward pressure on sort of input costs. But I guess that he thought it would sort of equalize out with lower demand, right? But it's kind of the opposite. Demand has gone through the roof, and we still haven't got the labor there to meet it. So the government, look, I mean, the federal government is aware of this issue. They are throwing, visas at people who are qualified. I have a friend, her partner and her and herself were from the UK. He's a welder or some sort of metal worker.
Fucking get in here. Get in.
Yeah.
Give him a permanent
Express
residency.
lane. What are you, a surgeon? Get fucked. We need welders. We need chippies. We need sparkies.
They got permanent residency like that. And when I say like that, it was a few months. But compared to some of my other friends who were
Several years
through the permanent residency, system, it could take several years if you're not qualified. So they are, and the government's also sort of tried to sort of, change the system up where there's not, with the education sector, there's not, a billion fake uni degrees, floating around, they want people in here studying good quality courses who are skilled or who have come over with the requisite skills. But it's still not quite enough. And I don't necessarily know.
Or it's not going to be enough soon enough for us to fix the problem. Like the state government is spending a lot of money on free TAFE courses to get people trained up in a lot of these in-demand skill sets. Like you say, welding, trades, electricians, like areas where there is a lot of excess demand. You can go to the government website and see what are courses that I can do today at reputable universities for free. The government will pay your entire ticket for you to go and do one of these courses to go be part of the skilled workforce that they need to fill this gap. The question is it going to be fast enough? Like, yes, over time, over the next 5-10 years, getting all of these people through with free educations, getting them into targeting them towards in-demand sectors will be good, but is it going to solve the problem immediately? Like, no, it's going to take several years for all of that to filter through the system. So, I don't really know what you do other than get a bunch of skilled migrants, because that can start tomorrow. What else can you do, really? Like, you can sort of muck around with tax concessions and, little bits and pieces to try and attract people here and detract them from something else. Like, but at the end of the day, like it's just a sheer numbers. It's a demographics thing. It's like we need, say, for example, 800,000 workers and we've got 400,000. So it's like, so we can't solve that overnight. Even if the thing that I get annoyed with in this equation is that's fine. That's the situation. And some builders have started doing this. People need to say no to contracts. If you can't foresee that you're going to be able to fill that contract within a reasonable time frame for a reasonable cost, don't say yes to it. And some builders have been doing that. The other thing I think where it's incumbent upon, I think, some honesty is with the sales aspect of land and big developments. So maybe not big developments, like let's say a big apartment building over the road. I mean, that's probably a good thing, especially if they've started construction. But like particularly like speculative land, like I know we need more housing, but selling land before it's titled, which is what a lot of developers do. So out in your greenfield site on the urban fringes, out in Werribee and Cranbourne and Pakenham, and this is Victoria, out north in Sunbury, wherever else. These big greenfield developments where you've got just paddocks and paddocks of empty paddocks and a fucking shipping container there with a sales suite on the front of it. If you're selling these, for the mum and dad investors, if you're selling, this dream of a house and a subdivision, there'll be a supermarket over there and God knows what else. That's all well and good, but you need to be really realistic with your timeframes. And I'm sure most of these organizations are, but there are some that I know that aren't. You need to tell promising
them
people the moon and then knowing they can't deliver.
Or just saying that, they're going to have a dream, but they're not going to necessarily title for 3 years. So what are you going to do for 3? And then, What are you doing for that 3 years? Like, what are you doing with that money? You put a deposit down a bit of land that you're not going to see developed to even be able to build on. So and then by the time you go to actually build, either your construction company's gone bust because or they've had to cancel your contract, or you go to build the same sort of house you wanted to build 3 years ago, but it's now 3 times the cost. So, I think there's a bit more, I think, rigor needs to be sort of seen around some of these developers, particularly in the greenfield spaces where we're selling land. Great. But does it exist yet? No. And when is it going to exist? And, let's stop potentially creating situations where it's just, one, putting more demand on the system, but secondly, potentially just leading people up the garden path with their money.
There's also mentioned you've mentioned to me previously that, depending on the council and the region that it's in, the permitting process can sometimes take several months to get approved, and that can be an additional part that slows down the process as well.
So you could, and then, you buy the land. Great. I've bought this corner block. It's a big, awesome corner block in this new estate. But of course, the estate's got 13,000 design guideline restrictions on it, plus an MCP, which has a reduced building envelope because it's on a corner block and you can't it has to look pretty because it's on the corner.
MCP meaning?
Memorandum of Common Provisions, which is basically just an extra bunch of
list of rules.
It's like a covenant, basically, in your title.
A covenant.
Basically, which relates to building envelopes. But the point being is you go to actually build a house on the block of land that you've been waited 3 years to be able to build on. You go to actually build on it, and it turns out that the block that you thought was XYZ big, the usable space on that block is only, half of that, or, let's say 2/3. Then by the time you've gotten through and sorted all the planning stuff out, your neighbors have started building, and that causes other issues, which you have to go back and redesign the whole thing anyway. So, I mean, I understand you want to have good design principles and planning elements with these new estates, but some of them are so
onerous,
arduous and onerous that it becomes there is, and the customers, by the way, aren't told any of this. Half of them don't even know.
This is what scares me, man. This is why I would never build my own places, because I have no fucking clue about any of this stuff. Like, when we were looking for a place, we specifically said we don't want to look at building because it just seems like a minefield. You know, and you hear stories of people that put down good money, they wait for several years, the builder goes bust, they never get their house, or they need to get someone else to take over the contract and then pay out the ass to actually get it built. And, it just seems like a terrifying proposition to,
and look,
if you don't know what you're doing. Like,
to be clear, sometimes it's fine. It's just that in this environment,
sometimes it's like not a good hit rate for my life savings. You know what I mean?
The biggest purchase you'll ever make in your entire life. Sometimes it panning out doesn't fill me with hope.
It's just unfortunately, we're in a situation where, previously builders might have been able just to sort of wear some of the additional costs that come in. Now they'll be looking for every single trigger clause they can in the contract to pass that cost on. Because otherwise they just will be building the house for a loss, which obviously isn't wise. But anyway, we're sort of waffling. But the point being is it's a complicated situation. It's not getting any better.
Yeah. Speaking of not getting any better, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a person who is certainly not getting any better. Better at what? You be the judge.
I rolled my eyes several times when George posted this article.
So
I'm honestly baffled.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is a human being, supposedly from a Republican from Georgia. And she has filed a motion this week to remove Representative Mike Johnson as the House Speaker. So you might remember this is deja vu all over again from earlier last year where I think it was Matt Gaetz, filed a similar motion to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. And there was like when he first took that seat there, he had to get past 14 votes or so to actually become Speaker in the first place. And then he got turfed out on one of these single person motions, and it just makes the Republican Party look like a bunch of backwards facing ass hats. And
thought
having
would've
learned no
respected-
lessons from all the chaos that they've created,
Mm.
they decided, yeah, we're gonna have a crack at Mike Johnson as
Yeah,
well, who's
I
meant to be
thought-
like one of
yeah.
theirs.
Yeah, I thought Crazy would have respected Crazy.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why are they doing this?
So Green and other hardline
yeah.
conservatives had expressed anger with Mike Johnson's handling of the 6 remaining appropriations bills for the fiscal year 2024. The package of those bills, totaling $1.2 trillion, passed the House Friday morning with more Democratic support than Republican support. It now heads to the Senate. Working with Democrats to avoid a shutdown is also what triggered the push to oust then Speaker Kevin McCarthy last year. So basically, like, he's got the top job, Mike Johnson. He realizes he can't be an extremist. You need to pass some funding bills, otherwise government is going to break. And so has had to do a bit of outreach and work with Democrats to get bills passed. And the same contingent of crazy, libertarian, taxation is theft, sociopaths have decided, well, it's the same reason we ousted Kevin McCarthy, so we'll do it to you as well. It just
Well, to be
seems
clear, she's filed a motion. Whether or not that motion is accepted is still up to debate. So she's filed this motion, but they are now in recess for 2 weeks, or another week now from data recording.
So we'll wait and see what happens with something's going to happen with it. Like, it will trigger something.
Well, they've had a week and now another week to be arguing amongst themselves.
And the Democrats again,
channel.
the Democrats again are not really feeling any like kind of special impetus to save Mike Johnson's skin. I think maybe people seem like better predisposed to him because he's not as much of a douche as Kevin McCarthy. It seems like Kevin McCarthy, like just as a guy, was not very well liked either on the Democratic or Republican side because he kept talking out of both sides of his mouth depending on who he was talking to. At least Mike Johnson, like, people didn't know him before he became speaker, really. And so there's not as much overt animus towards him. So maybe he'll survive this challenge, maybe not. But if he does, he's probably going to need Democrats' support, which
he'll need.
I don't see how that's going to
in the House. The Democrats will need to back him in.
Yeah, because the Republican majority in the House is very slim. So
it is, and the reason why we call, we're saying it's a bit crazy, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene would sooner see the government shut down than actually do anything to fix the situation.
I believe Jordan Klepper calls them Yol-Qaeda.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of domestic terrorists, basically.
Yeah. And look, part of this is to do with funding for the Ukraine war and stuff. And that's partly why a lot of Republicans are sort of, not weirded out, but there's a lot of a disagreement around all this financial support to Ukraine.
But it's so crazy. Could you imagine the Republicans of the Reagan times being like, we're going to be pro-Russia? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's this weird, and this is where, you can see Trump and the sort of the MAGA wearing sort of the isolationist element of that
distorting the party,
has distorted the party, because where it would have been, look, foreign policy, America, fuck yeah, we will, that's how America built its brand. Was
American lawmakers traditionally love nothing more than signing checks for bombs. It's kind of what gets them up in the morning. Like, the best part of waking up is Halliburton in your cup. In your cup.
It's, like that's how US foreign policy has been enacted for the last, 70 years?
Generations,
Is by the country, bomb it.
Since the World War II, since Bretton Woods, since the agreement that basically created the system of modern capital that we have post World War II, that has been the arrangement. America couldn't afford. I was just reading a passage about this in the very upsetting book that I'm reading about demographic collapse. But essentially, America didn't have the bodies to occupy the world firsthand. So okay, well, we're going to create a system of global capital. We'll lend you money. You sell us arms. Basically get everyone on side with a network of we're buying and selling stuff to each other in order to maintain this system of global exchange in order to box in the Soviet Union, right? Post Second World War.
Yeah.
And that's what's been the prevailing kind of ideology since then. So it's so and it's redounded to America's benefit because if everyone's doing business on your terms, that kind of makes you the main character of the universe, right? Like we're all doing business in American dollars, with the rules-based order, which is the rules-based order that America devised and benefits them the most. Like it is to their benefit to maintain the system where America is the world's cop. And so for American lawmakers to vote, against Ukraine aid, which essentially supports it is much more cost effective for the Americans to give a bunch of money to Ukrainians and not have to send in any of their own troops into the meat grinder to degrade one of their main opposition's armies. Like that is a very cost effective way of going about solving that problem. If Russia is a strategic threat and you can pay someone else to go fight them and degrade them and their capacity for you, like that's a great deal. Like under anyone's auspices, like no matter how you look at it, it's a good deal for America. And yet Marjorie Taylor Greene is willing to cut off her own head to spite her face because we spent a lot of dollars and dollars are bad. Like I just don't understand the rationale. Like
you could, I mean, there is an argument, and we talk about it here in Australia that maybe we shouldn't spend so much money on arms, weapons and that kind of thing. And
maybe we don't need to spend $385 billion on submarines we're never going to fucking see. Like that seems like a bad use of money. Like
what I would argue is that in the US's case, because they are the so-called head of the world order, this kind of thing is just actually depreciating their global power. Yeah. Which is, if you were an American politician, I would have thought kind of a bit silly, but
made you very afraid.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's where we're at the moment. We should find out in another week and a half as to whether or not the vote is put to the test and actually how it goes.
Yeah. Worst comes to worst, if they ask Mike Johnson, he'll have more time to spend keeping an eye on his son's pornography habits.
He can't be Congress's accountability partner anymore, but he sure can be his son's.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see how that goes. Queen of cutting off her nose to spite her face. Marjorie Taylor Greene might get her way after all. Speaking of detestable American political figures, Donald Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee and presumably former future presidential. I don't want to invoke it. Like it's like the Beetlejuice. Like if you say it too many times, you might will it into being. Like I don't want to say he's probably going to be the future president again.
Probably going to be the future president.
That is probably going to be the future. Like if all the polls have narrowed with Biden sort of like clawing his way back from the grave, but it's still not like it's a coin flip at this point, and which is astounding to me. But one thing that has gone really great for Donald Trump this week is that his media company. Trump's Trump Media and Technology Group surged last week in their NASDAQ debut. So this is buoyed by the US president's part ownership of Truth Social, which IPO'd via a SPAC. So a SPAC is a special purpose acquisition company, and these were all the rage during the pandemic. A lot of them popped because they weren't real companies. But essentially what it is it's a way for companies to back into an IPO, an initial public offering where you sell shares on the open market. So
cool.
So what it is
like something that should definitely be allowed to happen.
The whole point of doing an IPO is that you attract scrutiny from the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. You have to go through all this rigor. They go through your books. They look at your plans. They make sure you're legit. So if you're trading on the open market, it's less likely that retail investors are going to get stooged. That's the idea. And a SPAC basically kind of circumvents all of that. So what it is, it's like we're a company and we're going to go look for things to invest in and take public. And one of those things that this partnership between Trump Media and this SPAC allowed this Truth Social company to essentially not have to go through all of that financial rigor in order to IPO.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And he's IPO'd. And now the company on paper is worth $8 billion because everyone wants to throw money at the guy who's probably going to be the future president of the United States, because it's essentially an in-kind contribution to him by owning the shares, because it pushes the share price up and increases his net wealth directly because he's the majority owner of it. So now he's
It's-
like worth an extra 5 billion on paper, infuriatingly.
It's actually insane. Now he can't sell those shares straight up. There's what do they call it?
A
not an
vesting
embargo,
period.
A
So-
vesting period.
So it needs to wait 6 months, unless, of course, the board says that he can sell those shares, and who's on the board but like his sons and various cronies of his. So it's like, if he wanted to sell it, he could. But it essentially increases his value on paper by, yes, it could be like $5 billion.
So-
We don't know. Like the company is worth currently about $8 billion on the stock
Jesus.
exchange,
That's
which is
fucking insane, man.
which is nuts because like it's not a very profitable company. The price to
It's
earnings
not
ratio,
profitable. It still hasn't made a profit yet.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the price to earnings ratio, which is like a measure of how much you have to spend on that company versus the amount of money that is being generated by that company, is like ludicrous. Like no one would look at this business on paper and go,
So
this is the next tech behemoth. I absolutely need to get my money. I need to get in on
Yeah.
this. Like it's a weird fake company.
here's the stats, right? So in February, Truth Social had 8.9 million signups.
Mm.
Okay. X or Twitter had
Mm.
238 million
Mm.
active daily users as of
Mm.
June 2022.
Mm.
While Facebook and Reddit had 2.1 billion and 73 million, respectively. So basically, what that means is, as of Tuesday's rally, each Truth Social user was valued at basically $1,000 per sign up in terms of
Yeah, compared to
their,
Twitter, which is like $80 per user. In terms of like how much a company is worth versus how many users they have, Truth Social's worth nearly $1,100
Insane.
per user, which is
insane.
like nonsense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's no way that they could ever make a return on that investment that would equal,
yeah.
you know, that you're going to get $1,100 out of each customer to make that
just-
valuation make sense. Like
It's one of these things where this is literally the definition of
it's a meme stock.
It's a meme stock. So
Game
it's,
stonks.
There's a lot of issues at the moment with meme stocks and crypto memes as well. Like, and it's like these things have no utility. They are just entities in which you can put money into, and it's like gambling. The graph goes up, and great, you make a lot of money very quickly.
Number go up.
But obviously, at some point, that will burst and it'll plummet down. Although with Trump, it's interesting because it's probably directly related to his political fortunes.
Yes.
It's crazy. But the other thing is that, and this is what breaks my brain, is that he is able to use the money, he will be able to very shortly, use the money from this to directly affect his political outcomes as well. And not to mention, it's also a communications platform. So not only is it like, it's like policy, it's politics, messaging, and money all being merged into one, which is very dystopian.
This is exactly what the founders
incredibly
intended, Adam.
dystopian.
I think Benjamin Franklin, in his powdered wig in 1776, had exactly this in mind. You remember when, what was his name? The president, Jimmy Carter. No. You remember when Jimmy Carter had to sell his interest in a peanut farm because people thought that would be too much of a conflict of interest? And meanwhile, here's Trump like creating like case law for conflicts of interest. Like what is the most conflict that I could make a conflict of interest for the president? It's like creating a multi-billion-dollar tech company online communications platform. It's just like it is the most conflict of interest that one could possibly imagine. Like
so both both the messaging and the money directly benefits his political outcome, which is
Insane.
insane, absolutely insane.
I'm amazed.
Like
Jimmy Carter's still alive, right?
I think so. Yeah, he's like
I think
100
so.
or something.
Yeah. What? Say something, man. I reckon he's the one who should be like, remember when I had to sell a peanut farm? Like, yeah.
It's fucking
You're alive.
peanuts.
You're
I
alive
don't
to
think
see
it
this
would
happen.
make a difference.
Yeah, he is 99 years old, sitting in Plains, Georgia, looking at the television going, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah. It's just absolutely bananas. And also that all any of us understand about Truth Social, it is literally just the hotline to Trump's insane ramblings.
Yeah,
It's
Trump
Trump's
platform.
tweets.
Yeah.
It's Trump's tweets, and only Trump's tweets. Like, it's not his tweets interspersed with the rest of ours like it used to be. It's just him.
Well,
Like, when
because
have
he
we heard of
realized
anything else happening on Truth Social that isn't Trump said something.
he saw
like-
from the 2016 election how much value he was generating for Twitter by tweeting constantly and constantly amplifying his voice and getting his message out there. And so much of that value that was created by all of the attention that he was garnering, obviously negative attention, but attention nonetheless, the majority of that value was scooped up by Twitter, Facebook, the major news networks. They saw a big, increase in their viewership, CNN, Fox News, like all of these places that were covering these rallies. Yeah, I remember in 2016, it was crazy. They were covering rallies in real time and just like playing an hour and a half of a Trump rally live on CNN. Like the biggest beneficiaries of all of that attention were the news media networks, social media. And he saw all of that. He goes, all of this value I'm creating by making an ass out of myself and being the center of attention for the entire universe. I'm not collecting any of that value. So I'm going to create my own company. And that's why he refused to go back to Twitter. Like Elon Musk, when he took over, allowed him back on X. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't posted anything because he knows I'm going to be promoting Truth Social, my brand, because all that attention I'm generating, people will come to me and I'll be the direct beneficiary. It's like there was an element of like evil genius to it, really. Like, it's
we deserve
just,
the hellfire that's coming.
We deserve what we're going to get, right? Like, we absolutely deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get the leaders we deserve.
Yeah, well, speaking of the leaders we deserve, I guess our final story for tonight. I don't know if you can hear my cat yelling in the background, but it's nearly his dinner time, and I don't know if the mic's picking that up.
Yeah, I can just hear
that.
He is letting me know that it's nearly dinner.
He's a hungry boy.
Yeah, he is a hungry boy.
Speaking of hungry boys.
Anyway, speaking of hungry boys, a man in Texas, a Texan Army veteran, has changed his name recently. Like legally, like through the whole thing, he's supplied his driver's license as proof. He has changed his name to literally anybody else. His full name, surname else, given names, literally anybody, literally anybody else.
My favorite part of this story is just he's so pleased as punch with himself.
Oh, and the new license.
In the new license photo, he's got this big beard, he's got sort of a comb over haircut, and he's just got this little wry smile, like, that's right, motherfuckers, I did it.
He looks like Ned Kelly. He looks like fucking Ned Kelly.
I just wonder if is it a new photo? They might have just used the old one and he just has that sort of demeanor. But I guess, Army veteran, I can't imagine he's particularly chipper. They see some shit. But anyway, the reason he did this is because he has now applied for and I think launched tried to launch a campaign to run for the US presidency so that there could be an option on the ballot that is for literally anybody else.
I think it's pretty funny.
Very, very funny. Unfortunately, potentially, if it even gets anywhere and he gets on the ballot, incredibly damaging because anyone who does the vote for the funsies or leftists who hate Biden and Trump and then just go for literally anybody else are effectively just handing it to Trump, right? Because all the Trump people won't vote for the joke vote.
Yeah.
they will be organized enough to do it.
I suppose if you think it out, it's about what they're calling the double haters in this election. The people who hate Biden and hate Trump, where are they going to land? Like, do they hate Trump more than they hate Biden or vice versa? Will they vote for the person that they hate less in order to prevent the person they hate more from getting in? And if a significant segment of those people vote for someone else entirely, I'm kind of inclined to think that works towards Trump's benefit.
I reckon it would, because I imagine anyone who is I hate Trump and I hate Biden is a more left-leaning person who thinks Biden's not doing enough, not someone who's legitimately on the fence.
Trump's voters like Trump. They're there for Trump. They're not going to change, right?
Yeah, and they're not going to change. So
I very much doubt that there's any
voters who will just vote for the other guy to sleep better at night, and in doing so will hand the keys to the kingdom to Satan himself. But it is very fucking funny. It's commitment to the bit. It's a really it's going hard or going go big or go home. Although I heard a fantastic joke this past week from, I believe it was Josh Gondelman, a comedian Josh Gondelman on the
He's
Bugle,
great.
who said, he's so fucking funny, but pointing out like it's a real double-edged sword because literally anyone else you might end up with US President Vladimir Putin. Like, you mean literally anyone else? Because there are other choices.
There are worse
Trump.
choices. There are darker timelines than this one, believe it or not. Yeah.
You could dig up like fucking, bring Mussolini back from the grave.
Yeah, President Joe Rogan with Vice President Jordan B. Peterson.
Yeah, right? So, be careful what you wish for with literally anybody else. But, the form of protest.
Just imagine Joe Rogan from the Rose Garden going, "You ever tried DMT?"
Oh, yeah, it'd be someone just briefing him on
wow, man, that's
national
crazy.
Security briefing. And you just hear like, whoa, are you serious?
Be honest, man, did we fake the moon landing or what?
Yeah.
Can you take me to Area 51?
Oh, I told you about my all meat diet. I haven't taken a shit in a year. So look, fucking funny. I love this as a form of protest, but it also could, this article from SBS News points out, the likelihood of him actually ending up on a ballot.
He won't get the ballot.
Unlikely.
He won't get the ballot access. So in order to get on the ballot in all 50 states, you need to have, petitions and people sign, and those signatures need to be validated. Like it is a nationwide effort to get yourself on the ballot in all 50 states. I think for some states, the deadline is already closed.
He's got 6 weeks from time of recording, I think, to make it to be on the Texas ballot. They say mid-May he has to have 113,000 non-primary voter signatures. Not impossible.
Not
but
impossible. Sounds like a challenge.
If anything else, if for nothing else, this just seems like a really good burn to Joe Biden. Just I don't know. Can you imagine being him, seeing that someone is like, to see that not only the poll numbers between you and Trump, when you look at Trump and realize how the fuck is anyone agreeing with this shit, to see someone else be like, neither of you cunts.
Yeah.
You are both shit. And I'm changing my name to make that point.
You got to admire the commitment to the bit.
Like, because there's shit to do if you change your name. Like, it's not just, haha, it's on my driver's license. Like, fucking, you're with your employer. I don't know, you fucking, what do they call them in the States? Your 401k, or like, all these official documents that you're gonna have to change.
I have enough trouble changing my address when I move, let alone my fucking name.
If you're filling out a form, like if you have to, please don't if you live in the States, but have to go to a hospital, and you're filling in the form, and he does his original name,
your name,
Dustin
sir,
Eby, and go, fuck, like, no, give me a new form. And like it's like when it's January and you wrote the previous year, and you're like, give me another one. Like, I keep fucking it up. You're gonna do that, but it's got to be your fucking name.
Imagine you get pulled over by the cops. Imagine you get pulled over by the cops, and they go, "Sir, we're arresting you for murder. What's your name?" Literally anybody else. It's like, "Sir, please be serious. This is a serious matter." No, my name is.
He'll be like, "No, I'll get my license to prove it." He's got a gun.
He's got a gun. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Taser, taser, taser.
I mean, although he is white, so it's less likely.
He'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it was a fun scenario that we talked out there, and I really think the act out sort of really added to it. So.
Yeah. Just sliding in a little bit of like, just a cab in there is just always champagne comedy.
All cops are best friends. On that note, we have been, we are, we always will be a Natural Selection. Make sure you listen to us at our. Make sure you follow us. Oh fuck, I've fucked it.
Nah, you fucked it.
Make sure you follow us on our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and mother flippin' TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D.
And you can follow me down to the NASDAQ Wall Street Stock Exchange, where I'll be personally putting down a bid to get on the gravy train. That is Truth Social, and will earn my millions. And you will all laugh at me when I do it. But
I mean,
wait and see. I'm going to be a rich boy because
you've been banned from all the other social media platforms, so you may as well jump on Truth Social.
Yeah, I have many spicy things to say, Tom. Don't you worry.
That's all right.
Things
You
like
can.
what did we say before? Flybys. I can't even remember. What was the accent you used? I
Fly
can't even
boys?
remember now. Flyboys.
Fly boys?
Fly boys.
points?
Yeah.
Yeah, get my cheeky fly boys.
Incredibly
can,
spicy.
Put down an order for some shares in the name of literally anybody else. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
At least they let him. Surely there are like you can't. Yeah, there'd be names can't be sentences. Like surely that's a law somewhere.